Was this singer, presenter and journalist really killed by the DJV on September 13th, 1989? The late 80s were dark times for Sri Lanka's youth. 1987 marked the second time that the JVP had unleashed its reign of terror upon Sri Lanka. Sadly, many of the youth were caught in the crossfire between the JVP and the government's death squad. The 1989 rape and murder of this talented and beautiful newscaster shocked the nation as the most brutal killing in this era of darkness. Today we are going to talk about one of the most courageous presenter of 80s radio and television, 27-year-old Sagarika Gomes. Sagarika was born on 19th October 1961 to Samson and Rupa Gomes. She was the youngest of 4 siblings. She studied at both Presbyterian College and Holy Family Convent Dehiwala, where she developed her artistic skills. She also excelled in dancing and was a student of Vajira Chitrasen, but she was most well known for her singing. She was most famously known for Nirti and Nadagam singing at the time. She worked as a bookkeeper at the Tower Hall Foundation. However, her profession was the art of television broadcasting. This was when she first started working at Sri Lanka's Rupavahini Corporation, reporting government news on both radio and television, which during this period of terror was considered a deadly traitor act. During the 1987 to 1989 JVP insurrection, employees of both the Rupavahini Corporation and the Independent Television Corporation were ordered by the offshoot of the JVP, led by Saman Piyasiri, to suspend newscasting. Under this threat, many journalists and newscasters refused to present the evening news. This was when the Deputy Minister of Information, A.J. Ranasinghe, first approached Sagarika to present the evening news. Sagarika at the time had a huge amount of success. She was rising to stardom with her music. Her singing career was taking off and she was thrilled to be approached. Sagarika accepted the position, upon which she undertook the evening news. I mean, you got to give it to her for her bravery and stepping up, especially during a state of emergency. And despite many threats, continued to rise in popularity with her evening news segment. However, her mother and her friends were all concerned about her safety. On September 13th, 1989, darkness fell upon Colombo yet again. And I mean literal darkness, as in electricity was cut by the JVP. And the country was in virtual darkness. The streets were deserted. Evening came and there was yet another self-imposed curfew by the JVP. At around 8:30 p.m. that night, there was a knock on the door of Sagarika's parents' home in southern Colombo. 6 men with armed weapons threatened to break down the door of their home. Her family let them in. They held her family at gunpoint until her return. Sagarika was to be married in a couple of days. She had plans with her fiancé, an army officer at the time. They were leaving to Kelaniya that night, and she had visited a tailor to get a dress sewn. These men waited an hour until Sagarika reached home. Upon arrival, Sagarika was forced to accompany them to a room in her house for questioning. On the wall of their home hung a picture of Sagarika, her parents, and President R.W. Premadasa, who she had recorded a cassette for that year. This cassette consisted of 16 songs sung by Sagarika. So the picture was taken to commemorate this honor. The armed men took the photo and they cut out Sagarika and President Premadasa from the photo, as they considered the state to be their enemies and Sagarika a loyal supporter. This photo was found a week later under Sagarika's bed. Her family watched in horror as Sagarika was forced to leave her home with them for questioning. She told her parents that she would return as she had not harmed any person. Prior to leaving, she had removed her gold necklace and bracelet and she gave them to her father. She proceeded to worship her parents before she left with the intruders. When her mother howled in anguish and begged the intruders not to harm her daughter, chief of the intruders said, "We will not harm her. We will just question her. Sadly, what transpired after that is a mystery. There are a few theories by the police. So I actually received a bit of a tip in my inbox, a bit of information on what may have actually gone down, which I will share at the end of this video. On the morning of September 14th, 1989, joggers discovered Sagarika's naked body in a beach in Ratmalana, 14 miles south of downtown Colombo. Sagarika was found raped, stabbed to death, and shot in the neck. Sagarika Gomes was just 27 years old, 1 month short of her 28th birthday, when she was brutally raped and killed by these 6 men and left on the beach. Her parents lost a daughter, her siblings a sister, and Sri Lanka had lost yet another bright star in the making. What happened in the hours between the time Sagarika was taken for questioning and found dead at the beach? In an interview conducted by Venesa TV in 2021, her father mentioned that it was speculated by police that Sagarika, upon being abducted, was taken to a lane down Samudrasana Road where she was shot in the back of the head and stabbed in the neck. They had then transported her body in a boat to the beach where she was found. Well, I got an inbox message from a source who claims to have known the nephew of one of the thugs involved in the murder. In the year 2001, when the source was in 9th grade, this story was actually narrated during school hours. And the source is purely repeating what his classmate had told him. So even the source is unsure how true these facts are. But let's get into it. According to this thug's nephew, Sagarika was gang raped and killed in a hotel named Hotel Peacock in Lunava, Muratua. He was specific about 2 of the men, even naming them, which I will not do. One was a businessman from a notorious thug family in Ravatavata, who has now passed on. The other is a businessman from Lakshapatiya Muratua, who used to run an immigration agency at his residence and is apparently still alive. It was mentioned that during these hours at Hotel Peacock, Sagarika had begged for her life by saying, "Ane Malli Mava Maranipa," which has to be the most heart-wrenching account I've heard of. To this day, justice has not been served, as her killers have never been named. JVP was blamed for her death. The end of the 80s claimed the lives of Sri Lanka's youngest and brightest journalists. Besides Sagarika Gomes, there was Richard de Soisa, Premakirti Dialve, Rajini Thiranagama, and Thevis Guruge, all national treasures of their time. Sagarika's killers' motives were said to be fueled by their wrath of her disobeying their orders to not read the evening news, and for the music she recorded for R.W. Premadasa in her time, which is insane. In Ratmalana, there is a lane named Sagarika Gomes Mavata in her remembrance. Her remains lie in Nisala Sevana, Mount Lavinia Cemetery. What is super tragic about the murders of the youth in the 80s was they had so much to offer the world. They could have gone on to be leaders who actually cared about this country. Yet sadly, their lives were snuffed out so young. But they left behind a legacy in their short life. A legacy that most people wouldn't be able to achieve in their lifetime. So let's take a moment to remember them. So do you remember listening to Sagarika's music or watching her present the evening news from back in the day? I mean, there were only 2 channels back in the day, Rupavahini and ITN. So it shouldn't be hard to remember her if you lived back in the 80s. Let me know in the comments. You can actually still check out all her music on YouTube. Let's keep her memory and legacy alive.